you have any questions?
We have a lot of questions, and there have been a lot of popular topics that many questions have been sent in about in the last week. Let me ask you one right here. For everyone that sent in this question, what are your thoughts on Vince McMahon shutting down the XFL?
God damn, that thing's snake bit, isn't it? Poor, I feel bad for him on it because actually this time it was halfway getting ratings, and also they don't expect the ratings of 20 years ago, so it was better. And he's gone to all this trouble, and he's much richer now than he was then. So what did he cash out? About $300 million in fucking stock to fund this thing?
Money to burn.
I wonder how much money this is going to lose him. I mean, obviously you can deduct lots of things off your taxes, and the TV network paid some money, but I wonder if anybody's ever going to figure out how much this cost him to do a fucking, quarter of a season of football?
Yeah, and they were prepping for it for 2 years?
I wonder if somebody ought to fucking, like that time that George Scott signed the Iron Sheik when Turner bought Crockett out and took over and made it WCW. George Scott brings the Iron Sheik in, signs him to a $100,000 a year contract. And of course, within 8 weeks, and this was 1989, right? They found out that Sheik was, in ring was not going to be the Sheik's future. It was bloody awful. And so they sent him home when they fired George Scott. And then they let him sit home so long they forgot about him, and his contract rolled over the next year. And they fucking had to pay him for another year, so they brought him to TV a couple of times to get some use out of him, thinking if they just jobbed him in like a couple minutes that he would get mad and quit. But he's, no, fucking, you're paying me $100,000 a year. He did all the jobs, and they were so rotten that they sent him back home and paid him for another fucking year. The point is, we figured out that Sheik that one year made like literally fucking $30,000 a match. So I wonder if somebody can do the math, how many XFL football games were actually played and how much they in total cost Vince McMahon each. What would it be, like fucking $22 million per game it cost him?
Now, they've laid everyone off, and they've announced that, I guess, operations are suspended at least through the 2021 season. Do you think there's any way he tries to do this again for 2022?
Oh, I'm sure that he will, and I'm sure that they got 2 years talking him out of it. And that's what they're going to be doing, I would imagine, at this point. But at least this time it was actually halfway becoming a thing that people would watch, I guess, from what I heard, right? Unlike the first time, which was a giant bomb. And now and a fucking worldwide goddamn plague comes up.
Apparently it was a better presentation. However, I believe the ratings were starting to nosedive.
Well, I heard that they were falling, but not nosediving. That they were just, they weren't going to be as good as they were at the fucking start, because once people have watched for curiosity's sake, but they were doing better, all things considered, this time around. He may have had a chance at it, is what I heard. It may have been a thing for a few years.
He may have had a chance.
Well, he don't now. Damn it. But, I don't know whether it's just I just wish Vince would please quit trying to do things outside the wrestling business, because it never works. And it just can you imagine how much money the company would be worth and how much they could have paid the wrestlers over the last 20 years if they hadn't had a restaurant in Times Square, if they hadn't had a football league the first time, if they hadn't started a movie studio, if they hadn't, what's the big money loser that I'm leaving off that I can't remember, that they lost some money on in an outside venture?
I think the XFL the first time was the big one.
Well, but I mean, there's been several. And they didn't lose very much with the world bodybuilding thing. But the fucking restaurant to me was goddamn, because I was up there when they had the fucking thing part of the time. And, of course, that's the first thing I think of when I think of fine dining is the World Wrestling Federation. They go hand in hand. It was a big deal to Vince to have a business in Times Square. If he'd had that restaurant in Dallas, he wouldn't have had the restaurant in Dallas because he wouldn't have give a fuck. Or Chicago or Detroit or wherever. He wanted a big, like the Coke store in Times Square. He wanted a business in Times Square. And I think that cost them, what was it, $35 million in the end? Oh, I know what it was. The casino.
Oh, the Debbie Reynolds.
I was there when they bought that too. He said, well, we own a casino, pal. What? The Debbie Reynolds Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas that apparently was in disrepair and fucking malnourished and had lost money or whatever was closed down. They bought it and it was gonna be WWE Las Vegas Casino and fucking who knows what the fuck. And that was a grand plan that they spent all this time talking about. And of course, if I want to win some money, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to the WWF casino where everything they do is a work. I'm supposed to believe the fucking slot machines. But that cost millions of dollars.
Vince just can't accept that the one thing he's good at is professional wrestling.
Yes.
Everything else he's ever done. He did a Sugar Ray Leonard fight in like 89, 88 or 89. And that bombed. Like everything he does outside of wrestling.
Wait a minute. I was too young to even know about this or even know about the connection, but I sure do remember wanting to see the fucking event. He actually promoted the fucking Snake River Canyon jump by Evel Knievel in 74 right. On fucking pay-per-view or closed circuit. There was no pay-per-view, closed circuit TV. And of course, Evel Knievel's fucking gimmick fizzles out 10 feet from the fucking one rim of the canyon that he's taken off from, and he just went peep, and there's the parachute comes out, and boom, and it was done. So that was a big popcorn fart too, and that was when you attain the status as, like it or not, we're not talking quality wise, but in terms of financial results, when you're the best in the world at what you do in the biggest company, why do you constantly? Because that's not easy to do, and it's got to be a combination of hard work, skill, and luck. Why do you consistently try to spend all the money that you've made doing that in shit that every time bites you in the ass? I do not understand it. What was that question?
The XFL.
Well, fuck them. How about the X Football League? That's what they ought to call it now. Because that's what it is, an ex-football league.
Did Vince watch football ever when you were at his house writing?
Well, no, he's not going to watch football on a fucking Wednesday afternoon, first of all. But I don't know that he was a fan of anything to follow it on a regular basis. I'm pretty sure he had very little time to watch any kind of television. But he did play football in military school in North Carolina. And the reason that I heard that he wanted to start the XFL was that he thought, well, the NFL rules are for pussies now. and blah, blah, blah. We need to open the game up a little bit. And so he knew the concept of football. I don't know if he watched from start to finish, 2 football games per year, but he knew the concept of football and thought he could do with football what they had done with wrestling.